Hello. How is everybody? Yeah?
Good.
Yeah? Everybody nice and full from lunch? Feeling good? That's good. We just had a really scary talk there with a bunch of security, great best practices, and it's funny because this talk is well positioned right after that talk because a good portion of what I'm going to talk about today is fear. And that's really what security talks can be sometimes. It's like watching a horror movie. Sometimes people like to come to things like that, not to learn, but just to be scared, right? And who's ever been scared over security issues before? All right, so you're in the right talk, because I'm going to talk a little bit about fear. So today is really, it's a different kind of a talk, and I know we're in the dev track, but I feel like a good number of us are here in this room because we've followed some sort of a passion, because we found some sort of identity and some belonging in this community that we call Magento. And maybe you're looking at that for the first time, and so I want to welcome you into this community. So let me tell you just quickly about myself. I'm Phillip, and I didn't always have this awesome beard or hair, but it's I have been in the Magento community for some time. I work for a company called Something Digital, and we are hiring. And so if you happen to live in New York City and you're at Meet Magento Spain and you want a job, let me know. It's highly unlikely. I do a lot of things, actually, but I run a podcast with my co-host Kaylin called MageTalk, and we've been doing this for a little over 3 years now, and we have 70,000 monthly listeners worldwide who tune in 4 times a week or 4 times a month or something close to that, depending on how busy we might be, to listen to us talk about Magento. If you've ever been taken by surprise of some news that's coming out of Magento, or if something you wanted a little bit more in-depth and you were trying to find something deeper than a blog, then our podcast is probably the wrong place to go for that information. But if you want some entertainment around Magento and some insightful humor, or to meet people in the community, we're a great place to do that. I also run another one called Future Commerce, but I do a lot of things. And the reason that I'm sort of going into this talk today is that it is really hard for me as a human being to maintain focus. I've realized that I have a natural desire to want to create things. And I'm not happy with just having created something. I want to maintain the thing that I create. I want it to grow, and I want it to prosper, and I want it to live on. And if you're an open source and you're a developer and you've been contributing code for some time, you probably yourself want to see the fruits of your code live on and gain life and continue to be prosperous for a long period of time. So we've started a bunch of things. And the fact is that I continue to have to run these things year after year after year. And the question that comes up all the time is, how do you do it? How do you continue to do all of these? How do you pursue all of these passion projects that you're so very public about? And the fact is that I didn't come into these things as a means of success. I came into each one of them because I saw an opportunity for me for personal growth. When I realized that there's something in this world that I don't understand, there is something naturally in me that has a curiosity that wants to understand it deeper. A good example of this is back in March, I decided that I wanted to try running for the first time. Does anyone run here? All right, couple people. So I was the former president of the I Hate Running Club. And I was president and chief executive officer. I founded the club in 1980, and I was a proud member of the club until March. And it turns out that there was something about running when I did it the first time. I said, how could anyone ever enjoy doing this? This is terrible. Why would people do this to themselves? But the curiosity in me wanted to continue to pursue it, to figure it out. I had to know, is there really truly some sort of euphoria or high that you can get from running? And as I pressed on and I got deeper into it, it turns out, yes, there is. I finally understood it. But like everything that I do, I keep going. The fact is that if I had quit early on in the running, I would never have experienced the success on the other side. There was adversity that was staring me in the face the entire time. But I have a certain natural, there's a part of me naturally, and you may not be this way, that wants to continue to press through the adversity because I want to find the success in it. And that's really, where I feel like we are sometimes as developers or as entrepreneurs, and that we don't stay with things long enough to see the success, the eventual success. Arianna Huffington said this wonderful quote that failure is not the opposite of success, it is part of success. It is actually, I would reword this to say it's critical to success. The only way that you can really succeed is to have failed first. And so, at least in my understanding. And part of that success and that failure is finding the fear and uncovering what your real fear truly is. Because really, when we quit before we've ever found success in anything that we've ever done, it's because really we weren't able to face down the fear. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about fear today. I have spent an inordinate amount of my life crippled by fear. And most of it revolves around issues in my life where I felt like I just haven't measured up. I felt like, for whatever reason, because I didn't go and get a computer science degree, because I was homeschooled as part of my education background, because I dropped out of college to go join a band, because I had a different educational background experience, that somehow I was less worthy of pursuing a career in programming than some other people in our industry. And I was ashamed to talk about it. And the reason I was so ashamed is because we like to organize ourselves in our community around people who have credentials. And so what I had to prove myself, and I had to prove and stand up to the fear to say that I am worthy. I wanted to belong. And I think that's what it comes down to, is finding an element of belonging. So what did I do? I went and got the Magento certification in 2011 on the first day that it was available. I flew to San Francisco, and I went to the Innovate conference, and I got my first Magento certification. And when the second one was announced, I got that one. And the third one was announced, I got that one, and so on and so on. I have 5 Magento certifications. It wasn't enough for me, because in reality, the fear wasn't of other people's acceptance, it was the fear of my own being able to accept myself. Is that I personally felt that I was at a loss, that I was lacking. So you have to face your fear. And you have to say that at some point at the end of the day, a 5th certification doesn't prove to anyone else whether you're worthy or not of being a Magento developer. You have to decide for yourself one day. There's 20 certifications will never change the way that I think about myself. When I finally face the fact that I have to be okay with the person that I am, and that my experience and who I am is a culmination of all of the experiences I've had in my life, I will find my own personal success. So the one thing that makes us all the same, the one thing that unites us, is that we all do face fear. And the fact is that when you overcome one fear, you're just one step closer to figuring out what your next fear to conquer is. Fear doesn't just go away forever. We all experience this existential dread as we step closer to death. Isn't that just a lovely feeling? In 1992, when I was 12 years old, I had a very different sense of fear than I do today. My sense of fear in 1992 was portrayed in one character in movies and television, and that was Freddy Krueger. The idea of Freddy Krueger was the most terrifying experience thing that I could think of, or it embodied every part of the fear that I felt of going to sleep at night and having no control over my dreams. If you fast forward to 2008, when I first started doing real serious development work, my Freddy Krueger looked like this. My Freddy Krueger, has anyone ever called Magento Freddy Krueger? Okay. Just hashtag Freddy Krueger, hashtag Magento. Just put that out on Twitter real quick. The fact is that this was this daunting, scary platform that was supposedly powerful, but really actually just intimidating to me. And I did not understand the complexity of it. And it did. It impacted my life and my working, and that it even consumed my dreams, just like Freddy Krueger used to consume my dreams. And so the only way to face the fear is to continue to fail until you find the success. And I did eventually find success in the Magento space. the thing is that once I got past the fear of speaking out and actually contributing as a Magento developer in the community, and I started putting myself out there on a larger scale, my life changed out from underneath me. My life changed and my fears changed. My fears today look more like this. My 5- and 6-year-old are the most amazing, incredible part of my life, and they terrify me because I know they're going to grow up one day, and these kids that hug me and say they love me and they kiss me and we spend all kinds of amazing time together, they're going to grow up and they're going to stamp their feet and they're going to say, I hate you, Dad. And one day we're going to come up against a hard time, and all I want today is to be a good father. And this is the fear that I face today. So my question to you is really, what fear do you have in your life that you're not addressing? What are you running from? What is it that you're so afraid of failing at that's keeping you from being the person that you want to be? Not every person has to start a podcast to prove that he knows how to talk about Magento, and not every person has to go out and get 5 certifications to say that they have something to say about development or security or best practices. But every single person has something that's challenging them right now that you need to, don't give up, but you need to press into the adversity. So failure has made me who I am. It's my repeated failures, both public and private, that are the ones that have shaped me. The ones that I'm proud of are the ones that are very public and have sort of shaped me into being a better person. I've used some examples in the past of me sort of speaking out in the Magento community or on Twitter, or speaking out sort of instinctively on things and getting things wrong. My very first experience ever on Magento Stack Exchange many, many years ago. Anybody ever use Stack Exchange? Nobody copies and pastes code here. Cool. We're all real developers. So my very first experience on Magento Stack Exchange in 2013, I saw somebody ask a question. And they asked a question that I had wondered the answer to for months and even up to a year. About a year prior, I had built a site, and we had created this custom attribute, but it wasn't showing up in the category. We have this beautiful attribute that has all these great this data about the product that we've put into our Magento store, but it wasn't showing up in the category, and we needed it to show up on the category. That was part of the project requirements. So I spent hours and days trying to figure out how I can do this. And I came upon this really creative solution. And so somebody asked the same question in 2013, and I saw my opportunity. This is the time I'm going to put myself out there because I know definitively what the right answer is. So I spent about an hour writing this really lengthy response. What you do is, in the template file, you take the model of the Magento model that is inside the category template, and the category view, that product template. What you do is you then load the ID of that product back in, because now you have access to all of the attributes. That is the worst practice for performance that you can possibly introduce into your Magento store. But it solves the problem. The thing is that the moment I put that out there into the world, I had about 30 people lined up ready to tell me why I was doing it poorly. What we could have used at that time in Magento is, a single blog post that would have uncovered the right way to do this, but that's neither here nor there. The fact is that a very, very nice man by the name of Vinay Kopp approached me. He spoke. He saw that I was well-intentioned, but my approach was wrong. And instead of jumping onto a comment thread and getting into an argument about what I did was wrong, and instead of flagging it as a bad answer, or instead of downvoting me, he wrote a blog post. He wrote the blog post that I wished that I had had a year before. And he very politely addressed the right way to load a product attribute in the category. And you know what? We're all better as a community for it. The fact is that if I had never put myself out there and faced the fear of actually contributing and actually put myself into a vulnerable state, that we would all have been poorer for that. So it was that failure, that public failure. I didn't go and amend my answer. I didn't delete my answer for shame, because we're all better today for that. And in fact, I would encourage all of us to really try to re-examine yourself and re-examine your failure to see it, use it as a thermometer to see if you're personally growing. A wonderful developer, a guy named Larry Garfield, who's part of the Drupal project and was a core contributor in Drupal for years, said, the worst developer you'll ever meet, the person whose name you will curse to 1,000 generations, is you from 6 months ago. So take it back into your control. You cannot control whether you're a great developer or whether you're the best. You can't control sometimes whether you're doing in your job the exact, the thing that gives you passion. But what you can do is you can control your attitude about it. And you can find opportunities for you to grow your knowledge and to face really challenging situations. And sometimes that takes a lot of hard work. You have to put in the work. And these are things that I've realized that in my quest to be better, it's really to be better as a person, to say that I'm not innately smarter than Vinay Kopp. I am not innately more eloquent of a speaker than a Ben Marks. But I'm telling you, I can change my attitude to be more positive about it. I can work just as hard as anybody else, and I can be more prepared, and I can exercise some determination in not giving up when I face challenges. Thomas Edison said in his very, very famous quote, he said, "I've not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that it won't work." And sometimes it takes heavy, heavy, heavy iteration. A really present example, I mentioned some podcasts right at the beginning. The very first episode that we ever dropped of MageTalk on day one had 800 listens, and I was disappointed. I was like, we have such a huge community in the Magento space. There are tens of thousands of like developers and 250,000 stores worldwide, and I only got 700 listens. But as that grew, we launched another podcast, and the day that I launched Future Commerce, we had 31 listens. And the second day, we had no listens. And the third day, we had no listens. And the fourth day, we had no listens. But we persevered, and we persevered, and we persevered, and now we have 32 listens. No, I'm just kidding. But you continue to persevere, and really, half the battle in any part of your life or your career or in your job or even in your personal struggles is just showing up. Don't run away. Every single day, show up. It's about consistency. We have, objectively, a really crappy podcast, but we put it out every single week. And you know what? There's something to be said about consistency in your work, in your performance, in your attitude that will take you very, very far in life. And I can speak to that personally as well. Dolly Parton, who's a noted philosopher and an incredible thinker, she said, everybody, this is a great song lyric, everybody wants happiness, nobody wants pain. There can't be a rainbow without a little rain. And sort of an unattributed quote, but I like to attribute it to myself, is that don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something. There really is no such thing as can't. There is only won't. Or I would characterize that to say is that you can't right now. That doesn't mean that you won't in the future. And so I would encourage you, if you are a Magento 1 developer trying to figure out this Magento 2 thing and you find it hard and daunting, don't run from it. Don't try to steer your clients away from it. Embrace it and say, there's something I don't understand yet. So talk about hard work and talk about showing up. Part of working hard is not just putting in time or effort, but is being thoughtful. And we have a lot of really amazing conversation that's happening in the Magento community. I would like to encourage everybody to try to deepen your understanding of the entire Magento ecosystem. Not just the shopping cart, not just the core platform, but put in some work to understand what are the things that Magento are bringing around to its entire ecosystem that make it one of the most successful commerce platforms in the world. Magento doesn't just do shopping carts these days. Magento does a lot of things. And so put in a little effort there, because I believe that if you deepen your understanding in that particular area, if you are a developer and you're constantly finding yourself in a position of trying to communicate good ideas that nobody will listen to, take some time, take a step back, and try to refocus your efforts into working on your communication. If you are a developer who commits code, who are constantly getting rejected pull requests by the community engineering team, no, I'm just kidding. If you're constantly seeing rejection in work or criticism in work, take a step back and ask yourself, what am I doing wrong here? And how can I put my effort into things that are fruitful? And so work hard, but also work smart. And that leads really to the mountaintop experience. That leads to the overcoming. So I really want to share one or two stories here with you before I finish up. I did mention earlier that I dropped out of college. And I was 2 years into theological seminary. I was studying to be a preacher, as you can tell. But I was studying to follow a dream that I had in theology. And it was something I was very passionate about. But 2 years in, I had this opportunity, and so I wanted to go travel with my band. I thought I'd always come back to this, so I dropped out. My band hit the road, and we had this, somebody heard us. They heard us playing somewhere. We were in Seattle, Washington in 2000, and they heard us playing, and they said, we want you to come to this little village that we live in out in Point Hope, Alaska. Point Hope is north of the Arctic Circle. It is one of 2 villages in the Arctic Circle. It is the second northernmost village in all of Alaska. The northernmost is Barrow. When we got there to Point Hope, it's this little 11-mile land bridge that sticks out into the Arctic Sea, and this land bridge is eroding slowly over time. The ocean is rising and is slowly encroaching on their town. There's only 900 people that live there, and they've moved and relocated their village now 3 times. They are a multi-millennial generation. They've lived there for thousands and thousands of years with a rich verbal history. And these beautiful people live in a way that is very different to you and I. They still hunt primarily for most of their resources. They are very, very hard workers in every area of their life. They make most of their own clothing. A very tribal and communal and council-led congregation of people. It's really, really small. And everybody has the last name Frankson. It's very odd. But they're just such a lovely people. So they offered for us to come and for us to play music there. And when we got there, they wanted to show us a good time. And so they introduced me. I'm from Florida, where it never snows. And so we arrived there, and the plane lands, and it is 50 below zero Fahrenheit, which is like, I don't know, 3,000 below zero centigrade. I don't know what the conversion rate is. But it was really cold. It was cold to the point that we couldn't be exposed outside for long periods of time without serious clothing. And I didn't have the right clothing. I went and bought a bunch of Gore-Tex, but it was still not the right clothing. And so the community surrounds you. The community comes and they donate their clothing to you, their excess clothing. We have fur now. We have fur boots on. We have fur-lined pants. We are being outfitted by a community who are coming around a group of outsiders who are just not prepared to come into this environment. And as they did that, they sort of introduced us to their ways. They showed us the muck tuck, which is the whale blubber that is frozen and you eat with a little bit of salt. It's delicious. No, it's not. And they introduced us to seal meat stew, which is also delicious. No, it's not. And just experiencing a completely different culture. So they came around us. We played music there for a number of days, and then finally they took us out on a little trip. So we went out with the Huskies out on a dog sled, and this was deep into almost my second week there. And we went out on the sleds, and they took us out beyond the fence. And now out beyond the fence there are polar bears, and the polar bears find their way into the camp every now and then. And it's not always light in January, so it's mostly dark. And the polar bears wander around, so they have sirens that kind of go off. When they see a polar bear in the village, the sirens go off, and the polar bear's there, so everyone has to take shelter. And we were warned of this, and we heard the sirens a couple times. But they took us out beyond the fences. And beyond the fence acts as a windbreak. And there are these giant slopes of snow that are 25, 30, 40 feet high that are just thrilling to go over top of when you have the right guide with you. We get back to the village, and I had this amazing time. and someone offered to let me use the snowmobile, which is your first mistake because I'm from Florida, and you should never give a Floridian a snowmobile. We have no idea what we're doing. So where's the first place do you think I go on the snowmobile? I go out beyond the fence because I want to go hit some of those sweet hills, because that's what you really want to do. So I get separated from the community, and I get out there, and I'm out beyond the fence, and I'm taking the snowmobile up over this first curve, and I come off the top of it, and I hit that second one just perfectly, and I land where it's like it was built this way. It was just built perfectly that it was like I was on the X Games. I was famous. I was doing like all these tricks on the snowmobile, and I was like, this is so easy. The second one, I gunned it a little bit harder because I'm getting excited now. And I go off the top of it, and I pulled back on the throttle so hard that the back end kicks out from underneath me. And I tumble down the side of the tundra, and the snowmobile itself upends and falls on top of me multiple times as we're going down the hill together. It goes upside down, and it's buried in the snow. And now I'm out there, out beyond the fence. The snow is all around me. I'm probably a mile out from the town. I don't know which way is up now. I couldn't tell you which direction was back to town. And so what is my only option? I have to try to dig myself out. So I'm sitting there, and I'm digging, and I'm digging, and I'm digging, and I'm pulling, and I'm karate chop kicking, trying to get this snowmobile back over on its side, and I couldn't do it, and I was exhausted, and I was sweaty, and now I was intensely cold, and I was out of breath. And then the polar bear siren starts to go off. And that's when I realized, I think I'm going to die. I'm pretty sure I'm about to die. And I gave up. And I sat down, and I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm lost. And it was right about that time that the dog sled team comes up over top of the hill, and they saw me there. Obviously, I didn't die. I'm standing here. They saw me there, and they put me on the sled, and they took me back into the village. And it was at that point when I realized that you can't do everything on your own. That you, even with the greatest determination, even with facing all of the fears that you might have in your life, even these things that we have incredible curiosity and grit, there was no way that I physically was able to save myself from that situation. And that's why we need people around us. That's why we need Vinay Kopp to tell you and help you to be the guide. That's why we need Sherry Rohde and Ben Marks to put the furs on you to say, welcome to our community. You're not quite equipped yet. Let's help you get equipped and give you the right instruments and tooling and help you get up to speed, because you are welcome and we want you to be part of it. This is probably one of the most formative moments of many people of my generation's experiences with video games. In that first 1 or 2 minutes of playing The Legend of Zelda, you are greeted with what could be a life lesson or a mantra for you, to say that it is dangerous to go alone. You can't do it on your own. And so take this with you, and let this help you along the way. So to wrap up, my mom always told me, don't give any advice unless people ask for it or if it's life or death. This is neither, so take it or leave it. But I would say, first, you need to try to rapidly innovate and push yourself to fail faster. And that means that if you're a developer, you need to code more and commit more. And that means you need to ask other people for help. And that means you need to raise your hand when you get stuck. So fail faster. And you need to be decisive. You can't be at a place of indecision for too long, because if you're not doing anything, you're not going anywhere. If you make a mistake, I pray that you have a community around you to help, that you trust, people to watch your blind spots for you. But if you make a mistake, just own it. And I call that no chaser. That means don't qualify that you made a mistake. Don't tell a reason why. Don't give an excuse. I'm getting really good these days at owning my mistakes. Just fess up that you made a mistake, because guess what? We're all human. We all make mistakes. And you got to face that fear. Don't let that fear come into your life around the making of the mistake in the first place. Make your own destiny. Get yourself out there. Put yourself out first. And if you need a job that gets you committing code more, go after that job. But follow your passion and put yourself out there. And that's all I've got. Thank you so much.